Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Creation show, where we look at how choice creates and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you. And today we have an amazing guest. I'm very excited for today. I'll be your host, Rebecca Boswell, and we'll be joined today by Suzy Godsey. And our topic today is how can we nurture nature? And it has been, I just want to tell you, Suzy, that playing with that topic over the course of the week, even just in the posts leading up to today, all these really unexpected things started to come up where I was like, ooh, and what about this? And what about that? So I'm really curious as to what we will play with today. For those of you who do not know Suzy yet, she is a magician with bodies of all kinds, whether they are plant bodies, earth bodies, horse bodies, animal bodies of any kind. So human, horse, dog, I'm sure probably any type of body would be happy to have you play with them. And so she facilitates all these bodies energetically and in all the magical ways that she does. She is the creator of ESSE, which is the energetic synthesis of structural embodiment, which is I love. It's a body process that we can use where we're working energetically also together with the physical structures in the body. So being able to melt between what's energetic, what's physical, and create different possibilities for bodies living in a physical world, which is kind of what we're doing right now. So Suzy, welcome. There's so many different ways that one could introduce you, and so we'll just start, and people can ask questions along the way, and just get to hang on every word that you share with them today. How's that?
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. And I love what you have written about this, because I'm like, this is awesome. I really think I thank you for all of what you have written, because it's been really fun to read. Thank
you. Yeah, neat. So nurturing nature, as I started looking at this, hey, Georgia, as I started looking at this, it was like, oh my gosh, there are all these things. And I got where, like, the first thing that popped was like the thing that I think is on most readily on people's radar, which is nurturing nature. Like, oh, that's a conversation about like being kind to nature, and maybe not ruining nature or not whatever. And I'm like, wow, there are all these energies there about saving the planet. There are all these energies about fighting for the rights of the planet, and like all those things. And then there's also this whole other conversation, and I was really hoping we could start out today with the sense of what this conversation, where this conversation starts in your world. So when you are looking at this space of nurturing nature, where do you begin?
That is a really good question. For me, like, in a way, this all came up because there is so much about nature being a contribution to us in a way too. So, a lot of people say, I only really get to be relaxed or be having a good time or whatever it might be when I'm out in nature, when I'm in the woods, or when I go and sit by a lake or a river, or, whatever it might be, or take a walk with my dog. And for me, it's been always so interesting, like why we choose to have this when we go to nature or be in nature, but not when we're at home, not when we're sitting in our living rooms, not when we're at work in a concrete building, not when we're walking in the middle of a city. What is that? And I've always wondered, like, is that really truly because it's impossible to receive while you're in a city, or is it because you've decided that it doesn't work that way? Or how much of it is an awareness, how much of it is really also a conclusion that we have? And then, of course, the flip side of it is the way we are treating the planet, and really not really looking at it from the idea of having to save the planet, because You know, Gary Douglas always says, hey, look, if you come from the point of view that you have to save something, you're a superior asshole because
Yeah.
you have decided, you know, you have decided that you know better, or that you have like, um, basically, you know, some way to save something also means that it needs saving. And Gary always says, look, we don't actually have to save the planet, but we do want to be aware that the way that we are treating the planet right now is creating havoc, is creating a way of destruction, and we have to look at it. So it's not about being oblivious to that side of things, but to be aware that, hey, we do have to make different choices right now. We do have to look at this in a different way, but it's not about saving the planet. You know, it's a different thing. So
Yeah.
that's what sort of got this all inspired. Yeah.
Well, and there's an irony there too, right? I mean, the planet, right? Where it's like, well, let's save the planet, but really, it's just a selfish motivation because like the planet will be fine. It's just we may not be able to live on the planet anymore. So, and, you know, there's kind of that twist too of thinking that we want to save things, but you know, really, it's just a self-preservation because, you know, yeah, life will persist. It just may not persist in the form of human beings on the planet if we continue to, you know, not be aware of what we're creating with our actions and our inactions. Um, so, you know, the other thing is you were talking about, you know, can you really, you know, can you sense nature? Can you receive from nature when you're inside or you're in a city? And, you know, it's so interesting because we live in, you know, we live in these structures that have wood in them, you know, and they may not be growing still from the ground, but they still have an energy, you know, they are still these furniture pieces, they have wood in them. Those are trees. And, you know, we have elements all around us. We have iron and we have steel and we have like all of these different things that are put together to make the things that we use all the time, and we don't think of them as nature. And yet if we look at this from an energetic perspective, how much are we just constantly recycling these atoms and these molecules and, you know, all the things that even make up our cells? And so if we create this separation between, you know, nature, and it has to always just look like this and be received like this, and we can only contribute to it when it's beautiful, or, you know, whatever we've decided, how much are we actually missing out on all of the energies of what nature provides, and like how much nature is actually inside that we're not acknowledging? And it's kind of a weird thing because, you know, it kind of goes against how we tend to look at things, right? Like you have to be in the middle of the nowhere to have nature, but it's right here all the time, you know, in the plants that grow in our homes when we choose to have them, and the animals, the people around us. I mean, it's all nature. Um, so where do you, I mean, from just
With
having a
the people,
conversation,
I don't
like,
know about that, Rebecca. You know, I mean, no, but I mean, you know, a lot of I've had a lot of conversations lately with friends about, you know, when you are around people, like really the fact that we are so psychic and we're picking up so much. To some people, that is really an issue in a way that the way to really know, like, hey, this is not me. I'm not being myself right now. I'm perceiving somebody else's stuff. I'm perceiving other people's
yeah,
craziness or whatever might be going on. But we are so aware of it, and we take it on, and then we believe that it is us, because really we didn't grow up with the tool, who does this belong to, from a very early age. You know, we're learning this
yeah,
tool now. And to me, it's so interesting, like how often still every day, you know, I go into something and then I go, oh, who does that belong to? And I go, oh, okay, cool. No, it's not mine, you know, like seriously. Um, so this tool is so potent, and it really requires diligence on a daily basis. And
yeah,
so, you know, so yes, I get that if you are surrounded by people that are being crazy, you know, functioning from all kinds of sorts of stuff, and you are psychic, you're going to pick it up. So if they're
yeah,
closer, you know, because you are in buildings with lots of people, or you're walking through a city with lots of people around you. I get that it is
Yeah.
more challenging than if you are around trees,
Yeah.
which tend to not have any of those energies, you know, so I get
Yeah.
that.
Like the story
Also,
of the man in the cave, right? Like like it's easy, right? It's easy to be up in the mountains or in the cave or wherever, and to, to have your peace, your tranquility, your, perhaps you're able to meditate, or you're able to, have some sort of deep connection. And then, it's the second that you come back into the quote real world, all of a sudden it becomes a challenge. And yeah, we're picking up on everything, and it's all those pieces that are, what we think that we need to hold on to in order to be able to function in this world, right? I mean, this is that whole nature nurture piece that, I was kind of playing with earlier in the week, of like, this age old debate. So my first master's is in cultural anthropology. And so, that's a huge piece that anthropologists look at all the time, which is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Are you a product of your environment, or is the environment a product of you? Is it your biology that dictates what you choose, what you become, or is it everything around you that dictates what you choose and what you become? And, when you were talking about nurturing nature, I was like, wow, our actual nature, like our actual being, has nothing to do with the programming of biology, or the programming of society. There's actually a being and an energy that is not controlled by any of those things. And it's almost like, if we can go beyond all that to our true nature, our true being, who we truly, have the capacity to show up in the world, then we no longer can be controlled by those social elements, by those biological elements that create all that clutter and all that noise. So, we could actually be in the middle of New York City and maybe be aware of all of the things that we're aware of, just like, a radio is able to pick up however many different radio channels, but doesn't go crazy, right? A television, you can have however many different channels on your on demand, right? But the TV doesn't go crazy or short out. It's just like, oh yeah, they're all there. What would you like? Which would you like me to show you? But it's okay, because they're just all there, but none of them dictate, what the TV has to be. And it's sort of that same thing here. So how do we nurture what we truly be through nature, nurture nature? If there's no separation, how do we actually access more of that space?
well, it's a really good question. And I have to admit, Rebecca, it's been a bit of a challenge to hear everything you're saying. And I'm not sure how it is the other way around, but it seems like internet-wise, yeah, it's been a little bit choppy. But so I guess there's two parts to this. The very first one really for me would be like, what if we choose to receive nature in a different way all the time? And so one of the things that I really love as a tool that Access has to offer is basically the possibility to really invite an energy coming into life and through your body and so forth. So right now, for example, we could do this for just a second. So right now, just like connect with your most favorite tree. I know everybody has a tree that they have looked at, even if it's in a picture, even if you've never been there in real life, but you have all a certain tree that I know you are like, wow, this is an amazing tree. So right now, just have that tree in your presence. Okay. And so now pull energy from that tree through your body. So not into your body, but really through your body. And pull harder. And you don't have to be with this tree to do this. So that's the fun part. Pull harder. More. So really now the question is too, like, hey, what can this energy contribute to right now for you? What can this energy contribute to you for the rest of the day? Can it contribute to your choices that you are making throughout the day? Can this energy assist you in maybe tough situations that you might be in? Like, how can you use this energy also for your body and yourself? So, and remember, you can do this throughout the day. You can keep doing it over and over. You can choose to do that in any moment of any given day, if you would like to connect with that energy and if that energy is a contribution. But you can literally pick anything that is in nature and do this with. You could do this with a river, with a lake. You can do this with a group of animals, like you could pull energy from a whale or whales or dolphins or eagles. You know, those are the favorites, but maybe also looking at what could other animals contribute to you. So the not so liked ones, you know, could the energy of a spider contribute to your life? Like what could that be? You know, if you were to pull the energy from spiders through your body, and just perceive that energy, what contribution could that be? Or you could pick other things too, like what energy of, let's say, really unliked ones, like cockroach. You know, have you ever tried to pull energy from like what cockroaches are through you? And those are all different energies, you know, and how can they contribute to your daily life and living, and how can they really be a contribution to what is going on in your life? And sometimes it really can be like, hey, wow, I'm in a bit of a, you know, rough spot right now. Hey, what energy could be a contribution to me right now? And it's interesting when you start to open yourself up to that possibility, what you might choose, and you might be surprised what energies you might choose to contribute to you and where you are pulling from. So I just wanted to say that because, you know, a lot of times we have these ideas that only certain things are a contribution, but really, what if everything was a contribution?
Yeah, and where do we do that with people in our lives too, where, you know, you have the people that you know, you're like, they're the dolphins in my life. So you can receive what you receive from them in the way that you receive it. But then you have also the people in your lives that you perceive as the cockroaches or the spiders. And yeah, you know, what do we allow ourselves to receive from them? Or, you know, and what do we create with that or not create with that when we're creating these separations? I mean, everything I keep hearing you say is where we're really just inviting ourselves to this space of no separation and allowing ourselves to receive from everything and anything without judging which things are good and which are bad, or which, you know, can help or contribute and which can't, or which we're willing to, you know, give our energy to or not. And it's really just about receiving. And when you're talking about pulling this energy, you know, sometimes there may be this misconception that if you're pulling energy from something, right, that now you're taking it. But what I hear you saying is you're really just pulling the energy through it, through you, and you're not taking anything away. You're really just tapping into and tuning into what's available there. And how much could we choose more of that in our lives? Oof.
Yeah. What as possible if we're playing with those things on a daily basis. And in that way, you know, we are also choosing to have more connection with those energies, and we're not, you know, so much in this reality is about the separation, you know, and especially like what we talked about earlier, those energies of other people, you know, and a lot of times people choose then to have a wall up and put up barriers so they don't have to deal with all of those energies that are around. But
Yeah.
the funny thing about that is the more you try to separate, the more you try to put up that barrier, the less you actually are protected from it in a way. You know, it creates really kind of the opposite, because the more you try to push that out of your life, the more it really gets to you in a way, rather than if you are practicing by pulling these energies, like you said, you know, not from, but through them, through you, you start to really then also recognize that no energy truly affects you in a way, you know, it doesn't have to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like the TV having all of these inputs and all of these channels, but not being the effect of all of them at once, right? Like it yeah. Sometimes I think when we get all these channels, then we kind of stop working properly because we think that we have to sort of be, you know, engaged in all of them at every moment all the time and agree with them all, or if we don't agree with them all, resist and react to them in some way. And that's exhausting. And what you're saying is it can just all be there and we can just pull it all through, and we can then receive what's there and what's relevant to us in this 10 seconds, and also maybe receive the information of what's required. You know, how do we know what we may be able to contribute to our favorite tree or to an animal or to, you know, something in our natural environment, if we haven't actually had some sort of dialogue? And if we have this energetic dialogue with the pulling and we receive information, you know, you never know what will show up. The tree may actually be asking for something too, that we can become aware of, that we wouldn't have received had we not tuned in and just been in that space. So yeah, pull it all through, Lori. Exactly. Exactly. So is this also the way, uh-oh, the sound is gone? Let's see, I see you, but I don't hear you. Let's see. Okay, so I think she's gonna go out and then come back in. I don't know what happened. Somehow we lost the sound. So we're gonna pull energy from all of those trees and all of the things that would like to contribute to having ease and flow with this. And Jane, it's nice to see that you're on here. And I'll just look through just to see. Yeah, Eleanor, pulling the ocean. That's awesome. Yeah, Georgia, thank you. Calmness and strength. Awesome. So what when you guys are looking at what you'd like to pull energy through, what are some of the things, you know, we have the ocean. Let's add Suzy back in. Okay, great. So you're going to be back in 2 seconds. What else are you guys pulling energy through? Okay, I hear you again.
Here I am. Sorry about
Yay!
that. I have no idea. I think I have to hold my phone over here, so I'm going to try and hold it still.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, when we asked for the contribution from all the trees that we were pulling from, and Eleanor was pulling from the ocean, and look, you're right back. So it worked. How did we get so lucky? Cool. And banks. Yes, Eleanor, you want to pull from the banks? Yeah. You know, I mean, gold is an element as well. So I wonder. Pull, pull, pull. Um, so is this part of the conversation that you have energetically with horses when you're doing the conscious horse, conscious rider trainings as well?
Well, there's so many elements to all of this, because when you're interacting with animals, there is also, when we talk about nurturing nature, that's where that part comes in too, where it's like, hey, what energy can we also be when we are receiving from these energies of trees and horses and animals and ocean and gold? Like, it's not a one-way street. So what is it actually that we're also contributing to those energies? And the energy that we are being in those moments is the contribution. And so again, if you have barriers up, or if you have points of views about certain things and situations, that's when you're also stopping basically being a contribution and you're receiving. So in a way, true receiving is always gifting as well. In Access, we talk about the give and take program, which is sort of like the idea that, oh yeah, you give me something, I give you something, and then we're even. Well, when we're talking about gifting and receiving, it is really an energy of exchange. There is no one-way street. You can't really take, like you said earlier too, it's impossible to really take an energy. If you're allowing to truly receive an energy, there isn't a simultaneous gifting there. So you don't even have to stress that, or you don't even have to be like, oh, but I have to give something. No, you are being a gift by receiving, which is an interesting concept all to itself. But I think a lot of us have this idea that, oh, I have to give all day long, and so many people have this as like their operative state, that they have to constantly give. But what if you started to really truly receive, because in that moment you are gifting? So it's an interesting thing to kind of put on it.
Well, so how, like, what would it take for, for us all to really truly acknowledge the gift that we are? I mean, it all kind of comes down to that, because it's almost like when we don't acknowledge the value that we be, or we don't acknowledge, our, just worthiness. There's this weird thing sometimes that we do in this, in this life experience of having these points of view or having these conclusions. Maybe there have been projections placed on us that we've bought as real, where, there's this sense that deep down, maybe we're really not good enough, or we're not worthy enough, or there's something broken or whatever. And it's like, well, if I give and give and give, maybe at some point I'll give enough to be able to receive, because we have this sense of reciprocity, right? Like, you give me this, I give you this, but what I have to give you isn't really worth much. So I have to give you so much before I can finally take just a little bit, right? And yet it's so interesting, because we actually, it's all like, this is it. Like, wow, we get to be this, and we get to choose this, and we get to have this, and we get to get the value of it, not because of anything, not to prove that we have value, but just by being here, by choosing to be on the planet, right? We get to be alive, and that in and of itself is a gift, because every moment, whatever we're creating and choosing, is going to impact the other people in our lives in one way or another. And so what are we choosing? What are we creating? What would we like to create? And what if that operative state that you're talking about, if we would just all acknowledge, okay, great, we are, like, this is I be, and now what? Now what would I like? Now what can I choose? Now how can I contribute? Oh, I love that. I'd like to have more of that. Oh, this feels great. I'll dial that up. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, right? That's where gratitude comes in, is actually acknowledging, that we've received it, not trying to hide that we received something and not let anybody know because we think maybe we shouldn't have gotten it in the first place. There are all these weird things that start to get created, right? So when you're working with animals, I get that there's like, they're like, oh yeah, you want to rub me here? Oh, that's great. Oh, you want to pet me here? Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, you're gonna help, you're gonna give me some energy here where it feels a little sticky. Oh, great, thanks. And then they're done and they're like, see you later. Bye. I'm done with you. And that's okay too, because there's no point of view about it. Sometimes with people, it's a little different. So when you're working with people, and you start to begin to see some of this stuff going on, you already shared the tool of who does this belong to? So getting people to acknowledge when there's something in their world that's not working well. Okay, is it even theirs? And then where else do you begin to facilitate people in seeing where they can actually just start out now as being that gift so that they can be continuously gifting and receiving?
Well, one of the things that I really love is like the tool of expanding out in all directions. This is something to really, again, this is such a simple tool, and you learn it so early on when you are playing with the tools of access consciousness. It's one of those beginners tools. I like the way of saying beginners tools, because boy, they are so
Uh-oh, I lost sound again. Oh, I'm not hearing you. Anybody else watching? Can you hear Suzy? Or can you hear me, Suzy? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. It's one of those things, Ciao, Maria. How are you? Hey, Margaret. Nice to see you on. Hi, Michelle. Yay. Lori, pulling through bodies. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we can pull through bodies. And what does that create? Also, see what Suzy wants to contribute to that conversation. Okay, cool. Yeah, she's coming back on. So we'll have her back on in a minute. Let's see. All right, well, I see you, Suzy, but it's not looking like it wants to let me add you. Did you switch to a computer? Huh, I wonder. Okay. Let's invite you again. Let's try. Oh, there we go. Oh, no, now you're gone. Oh, interesting. So you're there, but the add button is gone. So I wonder what we can do here to get you back on. You're still on the phone. I wonder, can you just close the Facebook app altogether and then come back in, and let's see, because for some reason the little add button isn't there at the moment. So let's see what that creates. Okay. So now, hi. Okay. All right, we'll just give you a minute to do that, because I went back and I still don't have the ad. Okay, cool. So now when you come back, let me know. Thank you guys for all the contribution. Okay, cool. Yay, perfect. Here we go. How do we get so lucky? Coming back. Yay. Da, 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 da. Here we go. Awesome.
Oh my goodness, this is good.
You gotta well, it's funny. I wanted to ask you actually about technology, because I love it. Like your capacities with nature And, with, yeah, energy physically embodied on this planet are, to me, pretty amazing. And, I really appreciate them. And I'm always really curious to see, what else you're choosing, you're creating when you're working on bodies. I'm always kind of looking to see like what I can perceive that you're being and doing. It's a tickle for me. And you also have amazing capacities with technology and do quite a bit with technology. And I started to look at that and I was like, wow, so like they seem so different in a lot of ways, but then I was really looking at like the physicality of nature, and I was looking at like, a tree, like the system of a tree, and I'm like, well, that's just a natural technology actually. I mean, you have these different systems and these different processes and all of these things that are going on, and it's just we don't think of it as technology because we think of it as nature. And then we think of things that are plastic and metal and electronics, and that's technology. And I started to realize, like, maybe again, there's not this separation that on the surface there seems to be. So I'm just wondering, what do you know, or what do you get about these capacities that you have with what we would call the natural environment, and then also the technological environment? And are there energies there that are similar or overlap, or, what do you know about these? Are these two completely separate capacities, or is there actually something in there that is not so different?
Well, it's actually pretty funny because when I was a little kid, my grandma, she used to say like, "Hey, can you bring Susie over because my TV isn't working?" And so I would go over there, and she would say, "Hey, can you fix my TV?" And I would just go over and touch it and be like, pushing buttons. But I had no idea what I was doing. But lo and behold, after I did that, it would start working again, and my grandma would be like, "See, I knew you could fix it." And I was like, "I didn't. Okay, whatever." And to
Okay.
me, it wasn't anything cognitive. It wasn't something where I was like, "Oh, I'm doing something with my energy," or what that is. I had no idea, and yet I knew, in a way, like I have never had the sense of a separation in a way of like, "Oh, these are terrible things and I don't know what to do with them." I was always intrigued by things, technically, mechanically, like things always were intriguing to me, and I always thought it was amazing the things that people have invented, in a way, so stuff like that, it was always fascinating. But yet also these days, for example, we just started the Nine Trannies class here in Dublin. For all of you that are not familiar with this, the Nine Trannies are not nine transvestites that we're, no, the Nine Trannies are nine superpowers, in a way, that we are exploring. And, so much of it has to do with the energy of who we are being, so for example, transmigration, the possibility to go from one place to another without using planes, trains, and automobiles, and so, but what are these energies, and what is it that we haven't really been willing to acknowledge that we're doing already today? And one of the things that was so interesting to me is that in this particular class, technologically speaking, we've had things occur that are really strange. Like last night we were setting up and there were three of us in the room, and we were still testing stuff and we were still doing stuff, and we were the only three people, and all of a sudden our mixer, all the knobs had been turned to the off position on the entire mixer. And there's a lot of knobs on our mixer, right? And we looked at each other and we're like, "Did you turn the knobs down?" Because it was like, "Why would you do that right now? We're testing." And I was like, "I didn't turn them down. I didn't turn them down. I didn't turn them down." So we all stood there and were like, "Oh, it's the Nine Trannies class. Okay, cool." So,
Yeah.
but really, yeah. But just acknowledging too that no, it's not so separate. It's not so different. And yet, you know, we make it very different. We pretend it's all, you know, different stuff. But you said it in the very beginning, you know, our houses are made of concrete, which is made of natural elements as well. You know, there's wood in our houses. There are things of nature also in technology. You know, we have a lot of components. And if we break it down, there are also electrons and all kinds of things that are making these things work that we can also find in our bodies. And, you know, so, hey, and I'm not saying a computer is like a body, and that would be definitely not correct in so many ways. And yet there are also energies that are available in all of those things. And so if we
Uh-oh. Again? Oh. So what you're saying is that because of the nine trannies class, yeah, well, okay, so yeah, let's do it again. All of our knobs have been switched to off, it looks like. So she'll. So yeah, so nurturing our nature. She's talking about the nine trainees class and all of these different capacities that, you know, I mean, I watch a lot of Marvel movies and, you know, things like that where people have capacities in these shows. Okay, let's try this again. And what if all of that is not so far off and it's just a matter of getting where we are able to choose to harness those capacities, or not harness them, but be a part of them. Yeah, gives new meaning, Suzy, to nurturing nature. If you know, if our true nature is actually to have and to use these different capacities that haven't shown up as normal yet on this planet. Um, yeah, what else is possible there? So
yeah,
I'm not sure
and
what you were
like
saying when.
it's okay. It's very funny to me that this keeps sort of stopping, and I can't hear you, and you can't hear me, and like, yeah, what else is possible? And in a way, it's funny. And we are talking about all these things that aren't supposed to be, you know, and we're not supposed to be
Yeah.
in this world. We know we're supposed to do. We're supposed to function. We're not supposed to be. So you know, it's interesting. So but you were saying something, you know, about, hey, so what is this nurturing nature thing, you know? And people might be wondering like, hey,
Yeah.
wait, this the topic of this show is how do we nurture nature, and
Yes.
we haven't talked about this, but really, have we not talked about it? Because, you know, to me, the moment that you are willing to really receive
Mm-hmm.
from nature or receive from your surroundings, you are nurturing your surroundings at the same time. And every choice that you make also is a choice that is a contribution to nature, or it may not be a contribution to nature, depending on what you are being with that choice. And so that's really the part where I really wonder, like, how often we were told also that our choices don't matter, or that we don't matter with what it is that we're doing all day long. But really, like you said earlier, you know, we have this thing of like, oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do this in order to succeed, or in order to be accepted, or in order to be worthy, I think is what you said. And you know, we have all these strange ideas of all of that, rather than really looking at, wow, you know, what if I was just myself, and then you know, really relaxing. And I think I started talking about this tool of expanding out in all directions. And
Yeah.
we are space. You know, we are more space than not. We literally are space for the most part. So you can create that by expanding out in all directions, and expanding out also into the earth, through the universe, making yourself really bigger, 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 bigger. Right now, make yourself even bigger than that, expand out even more, and more, and even more. And when you're being so much space, that is really more you. Use, like when I do this exercise, you know, I always have more room in my brain even. It feels like everything starts to relax. In a way, I don't have that sense of like I'm cramping and I am just being more of that space. And that is the space too where animals live. You know, animals don't think about stuff. They don't contemplate things. They don't go into that like head tripping that we do as people. And so for them, when we are being more space, they have more ease with us. And then we have also the possibility to receive from them, because when we're being the space, we can receive more from our surroundings. Again, we're not putting up walls and barriers to protect ourselves, but to really being more greater in a sense of larger. You know, if you can be more bigger, then you can also be greater, you know, which is really interesting. So really, if you could use that tool more often also, you can create more peace. And with that peace, you have more space. And then with that space, you can receive more. And with the receiving more, you're more of a gift. And with being the gift, you are now nurturing everything around you. And it's really interesting because when I first started using the tools of Access, a lot of my so-called friends at the time started judging me for being cold. And it was funny because what they were perceiving as cold was me no longer being emotional and crazy and reacting to things. But I all of a sudden was so much space that when they were being crazy, I was like, what are you doing? You know, okay, cool, you can do that. Hi, I'm over here. You know, if you need me, let me know. But I'm not going down this rabbit hole with you. But
you weren't taking
it was
the
so
bait
interesting.
anymore.
Exactly. So, you know, but with that also you can be a contribution. And I think now more people are recognizing that when we are being more of that allowance really of the things that are going on around us, we're actually more of a contribution than if we're going down the rabbit hole with people, you know, and showing empathy or sympathy or any of those things that require aligning and agreeing with a point of view rather than just being. So,
and sort of reinforcing too. I mean, if the person is, you know, in their way attempting to prove that they're pathetic in that moment, and you're agreeing with them by showing sympathy and going there with them, is that actually a contribution? Is it actually, and are you actually being a space that allows them to choose something different, or are you just reinforcing the trauma and the drama that they're creating? So not that you have to resist it or react to it or tell them not to do it or be it, and yet you also we don't have to go there and match it either, which I think what I heard you saying with your example is that, you know, that's how people knew to be with you, and you would react a certain way, and then when you no longer, you know, had that same way of being, suddenly they didn't know what to do with you anymore because it didn't match, you know, their trauma drama style. You're not doing this the right way anymore. I don't even know you.
exactly.
It's not fun for me to be upset if you're not going to do this game with me the way I want to play. Yeah, right. How many of us have experienced that? So yeah, and how much can we open our eyes to where that does occur in our lives and really get, right? Choice creates. Like, great, if it works, keep choosing it. And if it doesn't work, what else is possible? Truly, what else is possible? So, and is that where we also nurture the, you know, the different relationships in our lives, whether it's with an animal or with the natural environment, with other people? I mean, is that all part of the same conversation?
So that
Oh, did I
last
lose you again?
no, but
Oh,
the
okay.
last part you broke up a lot again. So I'm sorry, but I got a little bit of that, but not all of it. And now I'm not
Yeah,
sure if you can still hear me.
yes, I can hear you. I can hear
Oh,
you.
cool. Okay,
I can hear
cool.
you. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Well,
So, well,
the
anyway,
yeah, well,
go ahead.
one thing actually, you said something, and one thing I wanted to say to that, I heard a couple of words, and it sort of brought up this one thing that I really wanted to say one more time is please recognize that the choices you make actually are having an effect on everything that you are doing in the world. Like every choice you make creates something. You know, you were saying, choice creates awareness. That's one thing. And it really also creates something in the world. And really, it doesn't matter what the choices that you're making, but I think Dane said it today, or I don't remember. Oh no, actually it was Andrew. Andrew and I just had a class in Paris, and he was saying, look, when you throw a rock in water, it creates a ripple effect, and that is so true for every choice you make. It never goes unnoticed in a way. And so I know that we have really been told that a lot of what we choose doesn't matter, but everything matters in that way. And not to make it significant or to make it whatever, but just if we actually acknowledge that our choices have an effect and that it's not unnoticed in the way. And so with that also you can create a nurturing around you with the choice that you are making. So that was the part that I just wanted to say again, because I feel like a lot of us are really not acknowledging that our choices do create.
Yeah. 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 And then when things are, showing up and, when we go into that sense of victimhood, or we go into that sense of, this happened, or I have no power here, or always looking for something outside of ourselves to find an answer or a solution, what are we actually creating there? And all the misery and all the things that, that then get created with that, and trying to then put blame on where all that came from. It's like, okay, that's one way, and what if we could actually just acknowledge the choices we're making, acknowledge what those ripples are, and then instead of judging them, just being able to look and, like you said, say, okay, cool, I was choosing that, or you're choosing that, and does that actually work? Like, does it actually work for me? And in knowing that there's always something else you can choose, even if it seems like a 1 degree shift, right? We know what happens with a 1 degree shift, right? It can create a much greater change. So when people would like to find you after this episode, and play with you more on this topic and other topics, Suzy, where are some of the best places for them to look to find you?
Good question. Well, I am on Facebook with my name. I have a website, and of course, you can find me on the Access Consciousness website as well. So, Suzy Godsey is my name, and so you can see me here on Facebook. So you can friend me, and then you can find me from there. How about that?
Yeah, and there are a ton of really fun things that Suzy plays with, and I know I'll have all the links. Actually, I'll just have a bunch of links. So when
Thank
this
you.
is over, and later on when this gets put onto YouTube, in the show notes you'll find lots of different links where you can find her, and different conversations that she's having and things that she's offering. And did anybody have any other specific questions for Suzy in these last couple minutes? And while you're taking a minute there to comment, Suzy, is there anything else that that you would like to either just kind of put out into the world around this topic? Any questions, any awareness that's come up, or is there anything moving forward that you would like to kind of open a door for while we're all together?
Yeah, well, one thing is I would like to actually also give you one more tool that you can use if you wake up in the morning and you are sort of having a moment where you're wondering about, how you're doing. Sometimes you wake up and you're like, I'm not so sure how today is. You can actually ask, hey, is the earth asking for a contribution today from me? And if you get a yes, you can literally use like a 1, 2, 3, and which is a really simple tool. Like if you go 1, 2, 3, and you just use your hands, and on 3 you just kind of hurl energy. You can literally with that tool, you can contribute to the earth. You can also dissipate some of what might be in your world that is a little bit wonky in that moment. Because sometimes when the earth is asking for us to contribute, it may show up sort of as a little bit of like, what's going on today? I'm not so sure. So it can show up as such, but it could also be completely different for you. And please just use your awareness as well. But the 1, 2, 3 is a wonderful way to also, just be a contribution and dissipate energies that might be sort of having you a little bit like in a crank. so use it, and you can do it 10 times in a row if you want, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like just do it.
Yeah, and I know for me too, just the change in my body that occurs with that is, it's energetic, and then also energetic in through around the body, and also my body itself. I mean, I notice just a real enlivening in all the cells of my body when I choose that. So that's an awesome tool. Definitely, don't use it unless you actually would like to, and then use it. And the other thing that you just reminded me of too, that I know comes up in a lot of the body classes, you talked about asking, who does this belong to, right? We are these receivers of magnitude. We receive all these things from different people, thoughts, emotions, feelings, points of view, conclusions, like all these things that are coming from other sources, and we pick up on them and think, oh, that's mine. So you were introducing the who does this belong to tool. And I know that there's also, you can ask, who does this belong to? Or you could ask, is it mine? And you could also ask, is it something else? So do you want to just briefly talk about that something else in this conversation?
Yeah, is it something else? Then it could be the earth. And so, then in that moment, it could literally be that the earth is giving you information about something. And we've had people that were aware of an earthquake that could be occurring in some place when they kept asking questions about it. Or, it could show up as like people have had headaches that were really more about the earth giving them information than about having a headache. And again, it is really the question will give you an awareness. The question will give you more of what is going on than if you come to conclusion. And, in the moment when you say, I have a headache, you first of all have concluded it's now yours. And you have decided it is yours, rather than asking, hey, what is that? And if you really truly ask that question with curiosity, you might get some different information about what that is about. And but again, we weren't given these tools when we were kids. We were told like, oh yeah, if you feel it, it's your body. If you feel it, it must be yours. But what if that wasn't true? And what if sometimes the earth also was giving you information? And some people have more of a a radio station tuned into what the earth is communicating. Other people have other things that they are more in tune with. And it's funny how we use these words, you know, being in tune with something. You are picking up a certain tune when you are in tune. And so some of you are having more of a sense of certain things that might be going on with the earth, and you are more in tune with that. So pay attention and see what it is that you are receiving information about, and then also ask, is there something required? Do I contribute here, or is it just information? Not every information you're receiving requires you to do something with it, but really, again, just having it as like, oh, information, okay, cool. And you can ask, do I have to do something here, or is it just information? So just playing with that too.
Yeah. And is it for now? Sometimes I'll ask that question too, because I'll get a yes. And I'm like, well, but is it for now? And it's like, no, it's not for now. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, then could you let me know when it's time? So I don't have to hold on to it this whole time, because, you know, my brain likes to do that sometimes. I'm sure I'm the only one. So cool. So expanding out, what would it take over the next week, over the next, for as long as you like, to play with that tool, expanding out from where you think you are out infinitely, infinitely, infinitely? How much further out can you expand your awareness, and what would that create, and what would that look like for you? So playing with that, getting that when all the chatter comes in, you can ask a question, who does this belong to? And you don't have to figure out who it belongs to. Just knowing, like, is it yours or not? It's actually not mine. Okay, cool. So then maybe you don't have to figure it out, and you don't have to let it percolate in your world and, you know, you be the effect of that anymore. So then being the gift, right? Receiving from everything, pulling through everything on the planet, whether it's the cockroach or, you know, or it's the whale. Either way, what would you be willing to receive, and how much fun could you have playing with, like, what is the thing that I think I dislike the most, you know, and what would it take actually to spend, you know, a bit of playtime, just playing. What would it be like? Now, okay, let me see. I'll play with this, and let me do some pulls through, you know, the snakes and the spiders and the, you know, whatever it is for you. So, Suzy, these tools are amazing, and your invitation to them is, thank you so much. So grateful. Is there anything else that you would like to say to our viewers today and in the future?
Well, I want to just thank everybody for having been here and being present. And being present is actually also a gift. And what if you really also acknowledge that every time you're choosing to be totally present, you are gifting, and you're a gift to everything around you, including nature. So truly, what if you being you was the gift that was required in this world?
Yeah. And how much fun would you have just choosing it? Just choosing it for today. Just see what shows up. And you might want to choose it again tomorrow. We'll see. So, Suzy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and playing. Everybody watching, thank you for co-contributing and co-creating this episode. So until next week, enjoy, happy choosing, and I wonder what we'll discover next. Bye-bye, everybody.
And thank you so much for having me. This is just wonderful. And thank you. You're amazing. And thanks for your shows and what you create. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Mwah. Ciao und bussi. Bye.